All right, we should be live any second now. If you're here, if you're watching us on TLN Live, Instagram, drop a comment. Kai the goalie, I see you. First one here, of course. I appreciate you checking in.
Early.
Anyone who has an idea for top 20, who might be the number one team, drop it in the comments right now. Let us know who you think will be the number one team in our top 20, early top 20 that we're going to reveal in a second. And also let us know where you're watching from. I see some of you right now, Sean, Bryce, Tate. Wow. A UVA number one prediction. I don't know if that's going to come true.
Wow. They think a comeback maybe.
All right. I'm going to let Twitter know that we're live right now. I'm Kevin Boilard. I'm joined by the one and only James Hogan, Hoagie from the 𝐓𝐇𝐄 Lacrosse show. Hoagie, how you been, bro?
I've been good. Nice to be back on air, Kev, with you and the squad. So happy to be back. Been a long couple weeks since we were in Jersey watching the Atlas hold up the trophy. Excited, so
I know.
Good to be talking lax. Good to see lacrosse fall ball action on Twitter. So
I was gonna say a little quiet with fall ball being the only thing that's really going on right now. Had some USA, Canada international action in sixes. That's been fun to get the ball rolling towards the Olympics in 2028. We talked to Mitch live a couple of weeks ago, but hey, I'm ready to dive into college lacrosse, and I know our fans are too. Almost 200 of you in the chat right now. Beckett predicting a Maryland number one. Bo predicting North Carolina number one. Bryce wants to know who's better, you or Mitch, Hoagie. I'm not sure what exactly he means, but
I don't know I don't really know. We're totally different positions, so I don't know if we can debate. Mitch was a better offensive player than me, but I'll say I'm a better face-off guy than Mitch. So I think that answers it.
Awesome. All right, keep dropping in where you're watching from and who you think will be number one in the preseason top 20. I know who's better at ranking teams. That's James Hogan. So
I'll take that, yeah.
On the screen right now, you should be able to see the totally blank top 20 that Hoagie is going to reveal. Again, drop those predictions in. We're going to go 5 at a time. Hoagie's going to give us a little bit of a rundown on those 5 teams, and then we'll open the floor for some questions, and we'll do a full breakdown at the end. So let's jump right into it with the first 5. Hoagie, breakdown 20 through 16.
Yeah, so 20 through 16 we'll start. I mean, this is an interesting spot, right? Because this is a kind of a spot I feel like sometimes when we're ranking it, it's like we're kind of just throwing teams in from 16, 15 to 20. Like whenever I'm doing my own ballot at the end on like Sunday nights, I'm like thinking like, all right, like this team doesn't even deserve to be ranked, but you got to throw someone on there. So this one's a little tough, but for me, so I started off at 20. I put Denver on there. I just, for me, it's a belief in Matt Brown and what he's building. Obviously his first year at head coach got them back to championship weekend, but last year they missed the tournament. It's become a tougher place to recruit right now with the NIL era and kind of how conferences have shaped out. Like, you know, it's not easy to get kids to kind of come out west, but I think he's just a great coach. I believe in what he's building. And this is kind of, for me, like a bounce back year, I think, for Denver. I think they're going to be a team that's under the radar. I don't know if they're going to be a true contender, but I see them swifting around like that 16 to like 24, 25 range just outside. At 19, I got Towson. Look, Towson, they haven't lost a conference game in 2 years. This is Mikey Weishire's senior year now. He's arguably one of the greatest players in program history. I'd say he's probably the best Towson player since Ryan Drenner, if you want to say that, who took them to championship weekend back in 2017. So look, I mean, to me, Towson, Delaware left for the A10 now. So the CAA, they've kind of owned that the last couple of years, but it looks even like a clearer path for them. Once again, they're going to be a team who I believe is going to win the CAA again, make the NCAA tournament. Whether they can do more than that, that's going to rely on the backs of Mikey Weishire and how good he is. But I expect Towson's season to kind of go how it's been, lose to the teams they're not supposed to at the beginning, win everyone else, and then make the tournament. At 18, I got
time
Rutgers.
out the disrespect for America's team, Fairfield Stags. Gotta mention them. Come on.
Yeah,
talking
Fairfield,
about they're just gonna cakewalk to the CAA championship. Come on now.
Yeah, you know what? Fairfield. I do like Fairfield this year. I think they're going to be good again. They were good last year. It just, for me, I think they need to learn a little bit from last year. I mean, kind of underwhelming, getting kind of blown out by Drexel in the CAA semifinals because it looked like they were coasting all year. They kind of lost the game late in the year and then laid a dud in round 1. So until Towson gets dethroned, I'm going to roll with Towson. Like I said, they haven't lost a conference game in 2 years. So
I don't blame you.
I'm rolling with the Tigers in the CAA.
All right, so break down these next 3 for us.
Yeah, at 18, I got Rutgers. I think Rutgers was a team last year, went under 500. They obviously had that great win against Maryland, and they played a couple tough games. They went on the road to Michigan and won the first round of that Big Ten tournament game. They didn't have a lot of experience last year, but they're a team for me. Obviously, Colin Cardilla to me is a stud. I think he's going to be first, second team All-American. He showed out this year at USA for the U20 games in the summer. He's unbelievable. And then you have Cardin Stoller in net, who's one of the best goalies in the country. I know a lot of people know who he is, but I still don't think he gets respect for how real good he is. So I see Rutgers having a pretty solid year. I don't know where that lands in the landscape of the Big Ten because the Big Ten is so competitive and so deep, but I have them right up there with the best. And then at 17, I'm going to go with Boston. I think Boston's a team that, no matter what, how many guys they lose year in, year out, they're always competitive. They have their style of play. And Shanahan last year, freshman of the year in the conference, I'm expecting him to have a massive sophomore year for the Terriers. I love how they play. They're aggressive on 10-man rides. And, they're a team in the Patriot League that always seems to be there at the end come tournament time. They've been knocking on the door recently, haven't been able to get there for the last couple of years. But, you know what, I like Boston. I think Boston to me, outside of like Richmond, and I don't know if I really count Army as that, but they're like one of those teams in the outside of like the power conferences, I'd say, who's right on the edge of the door. And then at 16, I got Michigan. Look, Michigan's going to have a lot to replace on offense. They lose Ryan Cohen. Ryan Cohen's probably been their best player since, Mikey Boehm left a couple of years back. But, they have Hunter Taylor back in net. I think Coach Connery, I am an Ohio State guy, obviously, but I do respect Coach Connery as a coach. I think he's a good coach. What he was able to do from taking that program to be, relatively new, they're in their 15th year as a Division I program to get back-to-back Big Ten championships in the last 3 years. Awesome job by him. They also got Georgetown transfer Will Taminovich, who I think is going to be a stud addition for them on D. So that's where I got Michigan at 16. So that's my 20 through 16 right now. Again, tons of teams that could have been in there. I had Dartmouth just outside. I love what Coach Kerwin's building up there. Yale, I expect Yale and Coach Shea to have those guys back. I can't see Yale having another disaster season like last year. And then what does Penn look like, right? What does Penn – Coach Murphy's gone. How do they look? St. Joe's, they got a new coach now. How do they look? So a couple teams on the outside looking in. You mentioned Fairfield before, Kev. So tons of teams right outside on the pecking order that are not going to get in.
I'm glad you said that because, by the way, shout out Gabriel. I see you in the comments. Everyone else, shout out Gabriel in the comments. Your boy Jack was calling you out, saying a little bit of big school bias, a little bit of Big Ten bias here. I'm glad you shouted out some of those small schools. Any other small schools in the honorable mentions? I think I remember seeing one more when you sent me the original text with your top 20.
Yeah, so I think when I sent you the original top 20, if I'm going back here to make sure my list was right.
I'm pretty sure you had Albany in there in your honorable mentions.
I did have Albany. You're right, Kevin. You know what? That's your boy Silas Richmond.
That's right.
You can't doubt Scott Moore. Albany to me is a team that's so fun to watch, so fun to play each year. And Silas Richmond's going to be no different this year. I could see him. He's going to be clipped on TLN a bunch this year, and he'll be a high PLL prospect. But yeah, Albany, another team that can make noise. I think a bunch of those teams outside, like I said, the St. Joe's and the Albanys and the Fairfields, you really don't know what you're getting year after year from them. So it depends on kind of senior classes, how many guys you bring back. Did you lose any guys to the portal? Those all matter. So yeah, Albany is probably the outlier there of all those teams I just mentioned in terms of one who has a true top 5, top 10 PLL prospect and a true stud All-American type player. So yeah, I'm excited to see how Albany and Silas Richmond play in 2026.
Yeah, let's see. Let's talk more about some teams that are actually in your top 20. But first, I want to shout out some commenters. I see you, Pete, Mikey, Hudson, Nate. Keep dropping in those comments and who you think is going to be number 1 on Hoagie's top 20. Rogan is predicting Princeton number 1. That's an interesting one.
Wow. Yeah.
All right, let's reveal 5 more. So we're going to do 15 through 11. You got those teams ready, Hoagie?
I got them up. Let's do it.
All right. Now the audience can see them. Kick it off with 15, Hopkins.
All right. So at 15, I got Johns Hopkins. And yeah, for me, this is really a bet on, this team, Coach Milliman and the staff there. Obviously, last year they finished the season off 6 straight losses, and it kind of went downhill once Big Ten play hit. And it was a tough end of the road for the Jays. But, to me, this is a big year, especially for Coach Milliman. I think, obviously, when he inherited it, when Coach Petramala left, it was a tough first couple of years with COVID and kind of recovering. And then they made back-to-back quarterfinals, in 2023 and 2024. And 2024 really, Schellenberger nails the OT game winner in Towson and sends Virginia there. You could have seen Hopkins in championship weekend back for the first time since 2015. So Syracuse got over that hump now. Hopkins is now that team who's like got to get back, the legendary blue blood who needs to get to championship weekend. So for me, it's just Coach Milliman. I think he knows, he feels a little bit of that internal pressure. I think the fans are going to, let him hear it. I think he knows this is a critical year for Hopkins. And, I like what they have back. Matt Collison, Hunter Chavette. I expect a big year out of those guys. And, Dukes' boy, number 29,
Charlie
who
Eiler.
he is. Charlie Eiler.
Yeah.
Hopkins been posting a lot of clips on him on Twitter recently, kind of pumping him up, foreshadowing he might have a big year this spring. So, yeah, those
who
guys,
who else they got as a freshman?
Who we got? Oh, we got Asher's brother.
Asher's brother, Ollie.
Yeah, so another guy. We'll hear about him a lot just because of the Asher reference. We'll hear him a lot on the references this spring. But yeah, for me, I think it's a big bounce back year for Hopkins. I'm not saying anyone's on the hot seat, but I think if Hopkins doesn't have a great year again, I think people are going to start questioning Coach Milliman. I think there's the pressure there. So I think I expect Hopkins to have a bounce back year. And kind of similarly at 14 with Virginia. Virginia is a team for me. Lars Tiffany has not had a bad year. I feel like they've been in championship weekend ever since he got hired. Besides last year, it goes south, under 500. They missed the tournament. To me, it's betting on McCabe Millen having a bounce back junior year. He didn't have his best year last year. You're bringing in his brother, Brendan Millen, now number 1 recruit in the freshman class. You got guys like Colsey in the midfield. Kev, I know you're from Virginia, hometown guy, or you're a Virginia cat. But what are your thoughts on UVA? You think they're a little high?
I think you got Hopkins and Virginia here, definitely higher than they finished in the top 20 last year. But again, it's one of those things where, Hopkins and Virginia, they play the best of the best. And when you really look at things at the end of the year, were they one of the 15 to 20 best teams in the league or in college lacrosse? Yeah, they probably were, but they didn't have the record to show for it. And ultimately, you got to win against who you're playing against. So I have no problem with them being there right now, but I think that some of the fans probably disagree with you just because hype around those two teams. I don't want to say all-time low, but definitely low after last year.
Yeah, I can't imagine Lars Tiffany having back-to-back downward spiral type seasons like that.
Mitch in the comments. Mitch is here. Joey Lindstrom is here. Rhett. He's shouting out Kai. He shouts out Kai, the goalie, before us. Oh, no, he drops frogs first. So he lets everyone know. Let's everyone know he's here. All right, okay.
But we'll see. I think, obviously, these are two blue bloods, Virginia and Hopkins. Didn't have their best years last year. Again, the year before, they played in a quarterfinal game to go to championship weekend. Hopkins
and lost to Virginia.
So
yeah.
So those are two teams that expect to be there. I expect them to have a bounce back year. And if they don't have a bounce back year, then we have questions again the following year. So that's
also, I'm a Jersey guy. I just went to school in Virginia.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you went to. Yeah, that's what. That's why I said I know you're from Jersey. I was like,
the fans need to know.
I said Virginia, and then I was like, wait, that's not right. He's from Jersey. I'm from Jersey.
Yeah.
I knew the Virginia connection was there somewhere.
Right.
The brain was going on the lax.
No, yeah.
All right, but on 13, I got Harvard, and I think obviously losing Sam King is going to be big, right? But I like the guys with Spidell they have coming back. Teddy Malone is going to be big. I think the biggest question for me for Harvard is going to be the face-offs. They were one of the worst teams in the country facing off last year. Honestly, if they had a better face-off percentage and a better face-off guy last year, they might have been in championship weekend. That team was playing at an ultra-high level. I mean, they beat Syracuse and honestly gave up the game in the tournament round. I think they won 4 face-offs combined between those two games and won one of those games. And honestly, probably should have won the other game if it wasn't for a collapse. So, for me, if they can get any semblance of 50%, I think this team's going to be a much better team than they were last year. I like the pace that they play with. Losing Sam King is going to be huge, like I said, but that's why I got Harvard at 13. 12, I got Duke. And, Duke, I can go either way. Duke's either making championship weekend or they're going to disappoint like they did last year. I think that's kind of how it's been. They have the talent on the roster. We could say maybe they have the best pure player in college lacrosse in Aidan McGuire coming back, right? People saying he could be, potentially the number 1 pick in the draft next year. They have the number 1 freshman class incoming in college lacrosse. So, to me, when I look at Duke, they're a team that they've on. I got Pelkey here.
I see
FaceTime and live.
Yeah, answer it.
What do you got to say?
I just want to say what's up. Hoagie, Kev, you guys are killing it. Just wanted to clown you guys real quick. I love the chat. I'm getting the boys fired up. Let's do it.
Dude.
Let's go.
Yeah, we need more shirtless Mitch on the channel.
Yeah, we need a little bit of shirtless Mitch action. But yeah, so like I was saying with Duke, it's kind of been the same thing with me where I called them the Kentucky basketball last year, where it's like they have all the talent, but they haven't been able to put it together. And I know they made a championship game 2 years ago, but like people have to realize Duke has a different standard than pretty much everyone else in college lacrosse. They're expected to win national championships. They're expected to be in these big games. So losing last year at home in Georgetown the first round just doesn't get it done for me. But Duke's a team I really can't get too big of a read on. I think they're going to be a team that we're going to see. They're always going to be good. They're always going to be around the bubble of making the tournament. Like they're going to probably make the tournament, but I kind of, I'm not totally sold on them yet. So we'll see where they land. And then number 11, I got Army. And obviously last year was a very controversial year for Army. A lot of people thought they should have gotten the tournament. A lot of people thought they got robbed.
A lot of people thought they were the Fairleigh Dickinson of college lacrosse.
Some people thought they were the Fairleigh Dickinson of college lacrosse. But look, Army, to me, they've established themselves as one of the best programs in the country in terms of consistency. I know what I'm getting each year with that Army team. They're going to be ultra competitive in the Patriot League. They're going to be ultra competitive nationally. I mean, last year beat North Carolina. The year before, they got Carolina and Syracuse. So they've shown they can compete with the big boys. They've shown that they can be a consistent winner. For me, obviously, they lose a ton of studs. Jackson Eicher was great this summer for the Chaos. You lose A.J. Pilot. You lose Mauser. You lose Will Coletti at the faceoff X. So a ton of the guys who've been there for a while. But they also bring a lot back. You got the Plunkett brothers back. You got Byrne back in net. So this is a team. Look, I think this is a team. They're always hungry. They always play well. They always show up. But do they have a little chip on their shoulder this year? Do they have a little bit of notch of, you know what? Nobody thinks we can compete with the big boys. They're not going to give us a chance unless we get it done. So screw it. We got to get it done this year. I could see Alberici having those boys completely wired. I'm fired up to see what Army can do, and they're at my number 11. So that's my 20 through 11 right now. And then, yeah, top 10 incumbent right here.
I like
so
where
we'll
that
see,
stands. We're getting to like the contender category. I think some of the teams that you just mentioned in there are already contenders to win it all next year. But I want to shout out some of the commenters who are sticking with us right now. Flicks by Gavin says Maryland and Loyola on top. I know where he's from. Douglas is predicting Maryland number 1. David says Cuse top 5. I saw someone say Jacob said UNC low key number 1. Interesting. And then Jesse is a believer. Hopkins top 10 easy. Jake Cates, BU alum, calling Army a choke
Boston
show.
College head coach now.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, calling Army a choke show. I mean, BU I think has beaten Army like 5 times in a row, so he has every right to say that, I guess. But not many that do. Anyway, all right. You ready to jump into 10 through 6?
Let's do it.
All right, guys, keep dropping in your predictions for who number 1 will be. Right now, we're going to show you the next 5. Hoagie, break it down for us, starting with the Richmond Spiders at number 10.
You got the Spiders at number 10. And some people might say it's a little bit high, but for me, it's just a belief in Dan Chamati and giving these guys a little bit of respect. Look, Richmond last year took Cornell to the brink. You could argue they had that game without a couple of mistakes late in that fourth quarter. So, look, what Coach Chamati's built there is unprecedented. They weren't even fully funded till a year ago, right? This team, I love a lot of the guys they have back, right? They returned 4 of their top 5 scorers. Lucas Littlejohn, to me, is one of my favorite names, but also one of my favorite players in college lacrosse. I think a lot of people are going to learn about him next year. But to me, what he's been able to do last year with, going to Carolina, winning a tournament game, building that, chemistry they have there, I think they're going to be a team that I don't have the schedules out, so we don't know. But I think they're going to take care of business at a conference. I think they're going to be in the championship. They're going to win their conference. They're going to be in the tournament. And can they make some noise again? We'll see. But to me, they're the first team in a while that kind of gives me like legit contender vibes out of like the non-power teams. Like Albany a couple of years back with Connor Fields and Tahoka. They were in the American East, but they could go toe-to-toe with anybody. We weren't talking to them like they were some, as Dukes would say, like mid-majors, like he would say it sometimes. That's why I have Richmond at 10. But yeah, I think Coach Chamati will have those guys fired up. At number 9, I got Penn State. Penn State, obviously coming off their second championship weekend appearance in 4 years. What Coach Tamperoni's done there has been amazing, knocking off Notre Dame with that massive comeback last year. They got big shoes to fill. Matt Trainer graduates, had a great year in the summer with the Atlas, won a championship. They got a ton of good guys returning. Alex Ross coming back. You got guys like on offense, you got Lehman, you got Hunter 𝐓𝐇𝐄, a ton of great guys coming back. And for me, Penn State's one of those teams where even if you don't see it on paper, Tambroni's proven that he's got a winner year in, year out and can have a team that can go deep in the tournament. So I just trust them to be around a top 10 team all year long. If I had a question mark about Penn State, it would be the goalkeeper position. Goalkeeper position, obviously Jack Frassion, longtime starter there for the last couple of years, started both championship weekend appearances. He's gone. He's graduated. So that's a big question mark. I'm hearing through the grapevines that they're going to be starting a freshman goalie this year, Preston Hawkins from Columbus, Ohio. I've heard he's going to be the guy from multiple people I've talked to around the college lacrosse world. They seem to say that he's going to get the start. Don't know too much about him in terms of his on-field play, but it's always tough when you're starting a freshman in net. You know, there's obviously that big learning curve and that big question mark. So we'll see. That's my one concern with Penn State. If I was going to have a concern as a new goalie in net,
but flip side, if you're a Penn State fan or just college lacrosse fan, the one thing they thought was probably a sure bet last year was goalie with Jack Frassion, and he ended up having a shaky year. So, you know, never know at this time.
Depends if they can get, you know, what they can get out of the rest of the team, right? Unfortunately, you don't have a guy like Matt Trainer coming back. You know, you have Lehman, like I said, Liam Matthews. I love his game. Hunter 𝐓𝐇𝐄, tons of guys like that. So we'll see. Reed Gills was awesome at the Face-Off X last year. He went toe to toe with Will Lynch there in the quarters. I liked his game. He kind of came in late in the year when Colby Baldwin got hurt. So he was a real difference maker. So look, this Penn State team, they're always going to be there. I respect Coach Tambroni and what he's built, but yeah, I got them at 9. Number 8, I got my Ohio State Buckeyes. The Buckeyes, Big Ten champs last year, silenced all the doubters, all the haters. Not only did they win the Big Ten regular season, they also won the Big Ten tournament title for the first time in program history. Obviously, everyone's going to, you know, clown in the comments probably about the Notre Dame game in the first round of the tournament. Not going to run from that. We got to be better. We got to be able to show up in the tournament. But obviously a big step for the program last year to capture that Big Ten championship. I know that meant a lot to the program, Coach Myers, a lot of the alums. But look, when I look at the Buckeyes in 2026, I think they're starting to turn into the team that you know what you're getting at Ohio State every year. They're going to have an elite defense. They're going to run their offense. They're going to slow the game down. And they're going to be a total pain in the ass for anyone to play. I kind of look at them, and no disrespect, to kind of like the chaos in a way in the PLL, where it's just like they're just annoying to play against week in, week out. Like they just do the little things right. They don't make mistakes. They kind of chew at you slowly. And then the fourth quarter, they pounce on you. Look, I think they're going to have arguably the best defense in the country in all of 2026. Big Tasty, first-team All-American stud. You got Bobby Van Buren coming back for his 5th year. Cullen Brown, one of the most underrated players in the country. He's a stud. So Blake Island as well at the short stick D mini position. So bottom line, Ohio State's going to be in every single game that they play just because of how good that defense is. They're not going to get blown out. They're not going to be, you know, put in hard spots. So the offense really doesn't have to do much. But also they have big guys coming back on offense. Alex Marnier, first-team All Big Ten player last year, had 50 goals. He's coming back for a 5th year. And then Garrett Haas, who really took control of that team last year. He's an upperclassman now at X. Yeah, I can see the what happened against Notre Dame. Yeah, in the comments. I see that. But look, you got Garrett Haas coming back, a ton of transfers. Jackson Birtwistle coming over from Syracuse, I think is going to be a good piece. A couple of Yale transfers. So look, I think Ohio State, like I said, they're going to have probably, in my opinion, the best defense in all of America. They're going to be in every game they play in. They're going to play their style. Coach Myers has his offense. And I see it's going to be hard to replicate last year, right? Just because of how successful they were. They went 14-2, had the longest win streak in the country at some point. But look, this team's going to be good. I think if I had a question mark, it'd be at the Face-Off X. Jack Oldman, very scrappy. I like his game. He can clamp, he can counter, but they were just around 50% last year. They need to kind of get that up to 55, 56, 57, you know, to be truly competitive in some of these games. But yeah, Ohio State for me will be at number 8. They actually travel to Georgetown. They'll play in DC this year. I'm looking forward to that game. Not announced yet because the schedule's not out, but little tidbit for you guys. They'll be playing at Georgetown at Cooper Field.
This is why you watch. This is why you watch live.
This is why you watch. You get a little tidbit of the schedule. Exactly. All right, number 7, I got Notre Dame. And for me, this is kind of a new era in Notre Dame lacrosse, right? The Kavanaugh is the first time Kavanaugh is not on a team, and I don't even know how many years. So going to be hard to replace guys like Pat and Chris. Obviously, they're all-time Notre Dame greats. Hardware, Liam Entenmann, that whole real unit. You know, you think of that Irish team and kind of all those guys. Jake Taylor, Ben Ramsey, all those guys. That
Their whole
40
starting
unit
attack.
guys,
They're going to have to replace their whole starting attack.
replace everybody. So, but getting into that starting attack, I think the number one player, I know there's a lot of good guys in the transfer portal this year. I think Josh Yago from Air Force is going to be the best transfer in the transfer portal cycle from this year. Honorable mention, All-American last year. Not many people know about him. I think he's going to be the focal point of Notre Dame's offense next year. I think he's going to be their star player. I think he's only going to get better and elevate his game more being around the talent that he's going to have at his disposal at Notre Dame. I think he's the most underrated transfer in the entire country. I know he was a highly touted transfer, but I don't think too many people nationally know who Josh Yago is. You will know who Josh Yago is by this time next year. So, look, Notre Dame is a team. I think they've went from, couldn't get the championship to now they're the dominant juggernaut the last couple of years in college lacrosse. I expect them to be the dominant juggernaut. I don't know yet if I have them in the true elite top championship teams yet in like that pool of 4 or 5 teams. But obviously, as long as Coach Corrigan's there, as long as he's the coach there, this team's going to be in the conversation for championship weekend, national championship every single year. So we'll see how Notre Dame is. A bunch of guys. I think they have Jeffries as well, who's playing football. He got hurt early last year, and Sean Light's now an upperclassman. So we'll see what the Irish look like. But it's a new look new look teams all over. A lot of the guys that we've known the last couple of years have kind of moved on. So that's what I got for Notre Dame. And then at number 6, I'm going to have the Tar Heels of North Carolina. Look, Joe Bresci's the hottest coach in America right now in the recruiting cycle. I don't think he can miss on anybody right now. So he's killing it in the recruiting game, but now we got to back it up on the field. And, look, to me, this is the pivotal year. This is a pivotal year for them, for him. This is, Owen Duffy, Don Petramala, Brady Wambach. They're upperclassmen now, all guys who've been stars and contributing to this team for multiple years. This year kind of reminds me of last year's Syracuse, where Joey, Michael Leo, and all them were in their upperclassmen years, and they were able to break through to championship weekend. So, look, the Tar Heels, everyone want to say last year they were back. Great year, so-and-so, after, missing the tournament a couple years prior to that. But, look, to me, at the end of the day, they kind of got embarrassed in the ACC semifinal by Duke and then lost at home to Richmond in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So, for as good as last year sounded on paper, nothing was really accomplished at the end of the day. If we're really looking at hardware or true, stuff that was taken down, they had a bunch of great wins during the season. They showed they can compete, but this is their year now, I think, to finally try and break through to championship weekend. You have those core studs coming in, and they're upperclassmen now. I love Owen Duffy. I love his swagger. I love his game. Brady Wambach's led the country, I think, in percentage, or been top 1, 2, or 3 the last 2 years as a freshman, sophomore, which is unbelievable. Don Petramala, same thing with him. So, yeah, that's where I have Carolina. Pivotal year. Kind of reminds me of last year's Syracuse team, where maybe they're not truly championship yet, but this is a good building year to go at it the year after. So I got them at 6. And then now we get to head into the top 5, which is always everyone's favorite.
Yeah. I'll pause there and mention a couple things I wanted to say about North Carolina. I think they're going to be under the biggest microscope of any team this year, probably, because of those guys and because of the recruiting success that you mentioned. The good news is they've got so much talent coming in this year. Anthony Rao, Gary Merrill will be on campus, joining a team that, as you mentioned, already features Owen Duffy and Dom Petramala on offense. So got to figure out the goalie situation. But there's really a lot returning for North Carolina and a lot of new talent coming in. So I'm excited about North Carolina, and I think they have a lot of potential to move up. But I have been saying that all along, Hoagie, that they feel like, to me, a year behind Syracuse. Like they were.
Yes, and that's what you've been saying back to the spring when we were talking about it last year. And you always felt like they're on the Syracuse trajectory, but the year behind. So
yeah,
for me,
which would make them a championship weekend team this year. Now, and I think the biggest key for this North Carolina team is Owen Duffy staying healthy. His playing style, he's not a huge dude, but he plays physical. He doesn't shy away from contact, and he likes to mix it up a little bit too. He goes for it. So we've seen the last 2 years, each of his first 2 years at Chapel Hill, kind of cut short or slowed down and hampered by injuries late in the season. Yeah. I think he's got to pick his spots a little bit more. It's like the franchise quarterback. You don't need to be diving for every first down. Slide sometimes, I think that's what Owen Duffy needs to take on, that mentality this year for Chapel Hill.
Yeah, knowing Owen, doing stuff with him around the block a couple of times, doing Mitch's camp, meeting him a bunch of times. He's not that kind of guy. I think he's
No.
that kind of guy. He's full speed, 100%.
Right.
He'll dive. He'll run into you.
But he's
going to play his heart out.
He needs to understand his importance to that team. And he's got to be there in late May 100%. And
Carolina's going to go as far as Owen Duffy takes him.
Exactly. And so, yeah, maybe that, 9th, 10th goal against High Point, it's not as big in the grand scheme of the season. While, yeah, you got to get that goal, chances are you're going to win that game and someone's going to score the goal. I don't know. Maybe wait till crunch time before you're putting your body on the line. But that's just my thoughts on Owen Duffy.
At the 6 through 9, North Carolina and Penn State are going to play in Charlotte this year, which is interesting. I raised this point on Twitter last year that Penn State has not played an ACC opponent in the regular season since 2014, which predates the Big Ten Conference. So the Big Ten Conference in lacrosse wasn't even a thing the last time Penn State played an ACC team in the regular season. So I got a little tidbit on it. I asked it on Twitter. Hey, Lewis told me that it was going to happen. We didn't know the team yet. I saw Dom Petramala championship weekend. I asked him about it, and he mentioned UNC was going to be playing them. So I got a little tidbit there. But it'll be interesting. Cool to see kind of those games, a game like that hasn't been played in forever, going to be played this year. So
awesome. Before we reveal the top 5, get your final predictions in now for who you think will be the number 1 team in Hoagie's way early top 20 heading into 2026. Just want to give a shout out to some of you guys. Walker, who's in the comment section, Ryan, Douglas, you've been here the whole time. See you guys. Just want to give you a shout out and thank you all for watching and tuning in live to this top 20 reveal. We'll do more of these as we head towards the college season. But right now, Hoagie, you ready? You ready to reveal this top 5? I think some people are going to be upset, I think.
I think so. I think it's going to stir some stuff up, but let's do it.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, reveal. There is your full top 20, including the top 5. Hoagie, tell us your thoughts. Starting with Georgetown.
Yeah, so I got Georgetown at number 5, and look, it starts with, this is a team that has been knocking on the door championship weekend the last couple of years. 7 straight Big East championships. I think it's 4 straight quarterfinal appearances, if I'm not mistaken. They've been this close, but if we're really looking at it, the last 2 years, great they made the quarterfinals, but I don't think anyone really had them beat Maryland last year or the year before beating Notre Dame. It was kind of like I could see them winning the first round, but then that's kind of where the road ends. But to me, this is I'm going to say the best year Georgetown's had, best shot at making championship weekend. I think they're a true contender this year. Obviously they brought in the Connor brothers from Colgate, which is going to help a lot. That those guys were studs for so much time there at Colgate. So I really like what Georgetown's building. I think Kevin Warren, he might be the most player coach in the country. Every single person that I talk to loves him to death, loves Coach Warren, loosest, most fun guy. They got a ton of good guys. Ty Banks, one of the most underrated defenders in the country. He's a lockdown defenseman. He's going to be great for them. I think he had freshmen last year, Jack Ransom, Kevin Miller. Those guys are going to be good. And look, they have a young faceoff guy in Ross Prince. And Ross Prince, to me, a great faceoff guy. I remember following him back from the recruiting days. He's going to be good for them. Georgetown's always going to be there. They're always going to probably death taxes. We say death taxes, Maryland Final Four. Right now, it's death taxes. Georgetown wins the Big East and makes a quarterfinal. So
right.
Can they finally break through this year to championship weekend? I don't know if I'm going to say yes yet. I got to see them play, but I think this might be Kevin Warren's best shot at doing it over the last couple of years. So I'm excited to see kind of where they go. At number 4, I got the defending national champions, the Cornell Big Red.
I think some are surprised to see them this low.
Yeah, you know what? For me, Cornell, obviously national champions. I love Coach Busick. I think he's the most underrated. He might be one of the top coaches in the game now, right? Young stud. He finally got his championship. He brought him to championship weekend. They lost to Maryland a couple of years back. Finally gets a championship. Look, you got to replace CJ Kirst, who's the best player in program history, arguably. He meant so much to this team, not only on the field, but leadership behind the scenes, showing how to do things behind the scenes. You know, you lose guys like Mikey Long, you lose goalie Wyatt Nust, you lose, even guys like
Walker Wallace,
who's playing Virginia at football, Virginia football right now, right? Like veteran guys who have been in the program, have led your team for years. Those are big losses.
Hugh Kelleher,
the LIRR, tons of guys, right? But look, Ryan Goldstein's a stud. Ryan Goldstein, to me, is a first-team All-American in 2026. It's not going to be like the quickest fix, right, because of what CJ's meant to that team the last couple of years. But Ryan Goldstein's ready to take the keys. I think they got a ton of great guys. You know, you got Firth, you got what's his name, the face-off guy,
Cascadden.
Cascadden.
Oh man, Duke is gonna have your head.
Is another stud. And come on, I can't forget about his Garden City guy, Brandon Staub, too, at defense. Come on, I'm not going to forget about him, too. So Goldstein, Firth, Cascadden, Staub, even guys like Ryan Waldman was big in championship weekend as a second-line midfielder. So, look, to me, this is just the Cornell culture really being around it last year, seeing it kind of up front is maybe the best culture in the country. So this is me betting on Coach Busick, betting on Coach Goldstein being a stud All-American, one of the top players in the country. So I got them at 4. I think we'll see where they lie. Again, it's tough to replace Kirst.
Yeah, I'm thinking a little bit of a championship hangover for them. I'm with you on that.
We'll see. We'll see. And then at number 3 now, I got Princeton. And, you know, with Princeton and Cornell, we got the Freebird song still in my head ringing from that Ivy League championship game back and forth, both teams' goal song. But look, to me, Princeton, this seems like the year to me that they're really going to break through. I think this is a good advantage of them, you know, to take advantage of Cornell, maybe potentially slipping up, right, and having to kind of reshape themselves in the Ivy League. Coach Madeline's done a great job every single year with that offense. That team scores 100 goals, I swear, per game. You know, guys like Chad Palumbo, Nate Kabiri, Colin Burns, all going to be studs. You lose Coulter Mackesy, which is a tough loss. But look, the offense is going to be there like it is every single year. The question marks are going to be in the defense. That's always been the thing. You got to get a stop. You got to try and hold teams 10 and 12. We can't get in 19-18 shootouts with Syracuse in the quarterfinals like we did last year. But, you know, you got guys like Andrew McMeekin, who's been a man-child at the face-off X in his senior year now. So
Ryan Croddick is pretty good, goalie.
Yep. So he's underrated there as well. So, look, Princeton, they're probably my favorite in the Ivy League right now. I think they've won the previous 3 before last year, Ivy League tournament championships, at least 2, maybe 3 to go back. So, look, I expect Coach Madeline, he's built the Princeton program back up from, you know, where it was 10 years ago when I was in the recruiting cycle to where it is now. It's a legitimate top 5, top 10 program year in, year out. They're getting a lot of guys in the recruiting circle. So Princeton's going to be number 3 for me. I think they're probably my Ivy favorite right now, but we'll see where they go. I love that offense. So number 2 is going to be the Syracuse Orange. And you know what? The day that Joey Spallina and Michael Leo and all those guys stepped foot on campus and freshmen, it all pointed to 2026. And this was that year where Syracuse was going to be back to prominence, win the national championship. Joey walking off that field in Charlottesville, holding up the trophy. That was what the plan was to all Syracuse
Charlottesville,
fans.
Just like we all imagined.
Yeah, just like we all imagined. But regardless of the venue, that's what they all imagined. The day he committed, the day he stepped foot on campus was pointing to this senior year, which was going to be the year. And last year, they finally got back to championship weekend for the first time since 2013. They got that monkey off their back. And obviously, Syracuse is Ohio State football. They're Alabama football. It's national championship or it's not a good year. They're not just trying to make championship weekend. So did they make championship weekend last year? Yes. But that's not enough for these fans. That's not enough for this fan base. They expect national championships or it's a failure. So look, last year was a great stepping stone for them. Finally getting over that hump. I think that's going to help them a little bit with the pressure this year to be like, all right, we got the championship weekend last year. We know what it's like to get there. Now, how do we go from championship weekend to holding up the trophy? So to me, tons of great players. The biggest thing with Syracuse for me, which I don't think many people know about, they brought in 1 transfer this year in the transfer portal. Dante Bowen, short stick D-midi from Ohio State. Dante is going to be a great depth piece for them at D-midi, but not even just talking about Dante Bowen. To me, that tells you what Gary Gait thinks of this team. I think he feels confident in the players he has on that roster. He doesn't want to bring in a ton of portal guys, mess up with the chemistry. I think he feels confident in the talent he has. I think he feels good with what he has. A lot of coaches are going to try and bring in as many portal guys as they can nowadays. I think that's Gait looking at his roster. He feels good with where his team lies, and he thinks that this team's all full go in 2026. Gary Gait kind of reminds me, I was thinking this the other day, kind of a little bit of like Jim Harbaugh at Michigan in football. Like, legendary coach coming back to his alma mater, right? The beginning wasn't easy, just like Michigan football was at the beginning. They didn't they underperformed. Syracuse had a losing record. A lot of people like fire Gary Gate, get him out of here. Last year, they get him to the to championship weekend. They win the ACC, just like Harbaugh did. He finally got Michigan to break through the college football playoff. They get upset by TCU in the semis, and then they follow it up with the following year with the championship, silence all the critics who said you couldn't get it done. So Syracuse is going to be my number 2 team in the country, but it's really splitting hairs with them and who I have at number 1, which is Maryland. I think you have a debate either way, which way you want to go. I give the nod to Maryland just out of Coach Tillman, and I know how good of a coach he is. I trust Coach Tillman, and they also obliterated Maryland did Syracuse on the field last year. Not that that has any weight coming into next year, but
I think it does a little bit.
I think it does a little bit. So Maryland's my preseason number 1 team in 2026. And, I said this last year, and people might say they always have talent, this, that, but I think this is their first real go at a national championship to truly win it in the last couple of years. I feel like the last 2 years they made the championship game and lost, but those teams kind of overachieved a bit for where they were. I didn't think they were necessarily had enough talent to win it all. So look, this team's full go. They bring back Eric Spanos, who we all know is a stud. They, got Leo Johnson and Chris Lyons in the portal from Yale, Alexander at defense. So a ton of those guys coming in are just going to add depth to them. Braden 𝐓𝐇𝐄. So look, Maryland's going to be good. Will Schaller, one of my favorite defenders out there. The question mark with them is going to be goalie. You got to replace Logan McNaney, one of the best Terps in the history of Maryland lacrosse. Stud. All that guy does is win, be calm, cool, and collective, get to championship games. So that's going to be a tough ask. I think it's going to be Bryant Rupel, from what I've heard, is going to be the starter on day 1. He was a starter in fall in Springfield last weekend. I think from a couple guys I've talked to off record at Maryland, it looks like he's going to be the starter. I don't know what type of leash he has. He played well when he had to get thrusted in there a couple years ago when McNaney tore his ACL, but we'll see what type of leash Rupel has. I think he's going to be a good goalie for them. They have a 5-star, I believe he's a sophomore now, who maybe could challenge him down the line if he wasn't playing well. But besides those transfers that Maryland added, they get Henry Dodge at the faceoff X, who led the nation in faceoff percentage last year. He's supposed to be good for them. Sean Crater also back as a faceoff guy. I saw he was taking a ton of reps there, fall ball scrimmage last week. And Maryland has, I believe 2 freshmen who were very high recruits last year who redshirted due to injury. Spencer Ford, I believe, and they had one other guy. So 2 high impact kids who are now a year under their belt know the thing. They're going to be redshirt freshmen this year. So adding to the depth of Maryland. Look, Till's the best coach in the sport. Death taxes, Maryland's in the Final 4. They're going to be there. And I think.
Did you shout out Jack Schultz?
Jack Schultz too, Ridgewood cat.
I was going to say,
scored a goal in the national championship game. He's going to be a guy who I think is going to have a massive sophomore year in that midfield. Super athletic kid, able to do a lot. Got on the field as a freshman last year. Fellow Ridgewood cat. Yeah, got to give a shout out.
I didn't think I was going to have to tee you up for that one, but okay. And Aiden Seibel is the 5-star goalie that's coming in. I'm super excited to see if they roll with him or Rupel, because Logan McNaney is the only question mark there, replacing him. So, all right, I got a couple of questions that I want to dive into here, but I got to give everyone a shout out in the comment section who's still here. Breck, I see you. I saw a couple of others Big Jack Slacks, thank you for the comment. Get in your last and final thoughts for Hoagie or I, because I got to get my questions in now with Hoagie. So I think we know how this is going to go. For me, I don't know if you agree. First of all, quick answer. Do you agree? Maryland, Syracuse, drop off. Is that where the first drop off is in your rankings? Or do you think Princeton's right there with them?
I think Princeton's, I don't know if I'd say right there with them. To me, Princeton's not in the conversation for 1.
Where do you see the drop off then? Where do you see drop off?
After Princeton, I think I see the next tier. I think Princeton's kind of somewhere in the middle between tier 1 and then tier 2. Princeton's kind of in the middle. They can either go up or they can go down. I guess I'll throw Princeton in there right now, but I think 1 and 2 is pretty clear. You can have debate whether you want Syracuse 1, Maryland 1, but I think going into the season, those are the top 2 teams in college lacrosse as we head into 2026.
For me, it's Maryland, Syracuse drop off, Princeton, another drop off. But I do think Maryland and Syracuse are the clear 1 and 2 heading into the season. I want to hypothetically ask you, if we make it through the month of February and it's March 1st and Maryland and Syracuse are both undefeated, highly likely, but Maryland is winning their games 12-8, 10-4, and Syracuse is winning games 18-7, 19-11. What would Syracuse have to do if both teams are undefeated by March 1st, we'll say, to get you to flip them over Maryland?
Well, the good thing on that, Kev, is we're not going to have to worry about that because they play in late January, early February. I think it's the third or fourth game of the year. So we'll know by then the answer to that question, who the clear number one is when they play on the field.
The schedule's out. Maryland's schedule isn't out.
Syracuse put it out. Maryland will be playing at the Dome.
I checked Maryland. I should have checked Syracuse.
The exact date up there, but Syracuse put that on Twitter. They just put their home slate. So I don't know who their road games are against, but they put their home slate. Maryland's coming to the Dome. I believe it's fourth game of the year. So we'll know that answer pretty quickly, which will be nice because it'll settle the one debate pretty quick. People won't have to worry about it. So that's probably going to be one of the most anticipated college lacrosse games of the year, especially in the early part of the year. We know Maryland has had their number the last 2 years, and let's not forget the last time was a Dome, the infamous crease call that got reviewed when Syracuse wanted an OT. They called it back.
Who hit
Maryland.
Who won? Who hit it in overtime? Quiz.
Was it
ball knower?
Was it Burt Whistle who hit it?
No, Syracuse
it was
lost. It was a Maryland player.
Oh, you're saying who hit it? I thought you were saying who on Syracuse scored. They called
it was
it back.
It was Leo that got called it back. But who?
Yeah.
Who scored the game winner for Maryland?
The D Midi. What's his name? I think it was number 54, I believe.
George Stamos.
Stamos, that's what it was. See, that's ball knower. That's why Kev's ball knower champion right there. I knew it was George Stamos. Yeah, I knew it was the D Midi. I remember watching that game live, and then it was like all of a sudden, before you could even blink, the announcer's like, "Oh, terrible, gut wrenching call for Syracuse." Then it was like, bang, goal, game over, within a matter of seconds. So
that was tough. A couple other questions I have here. Heading into the season, I know that you have described it pretty clearly that you think that there is a drop off from Princeton to Cornell, but heading into the season, before any games are played, is Princeton the team to beat in the Ivies, or is Cornell still the team to beat until Princeton proves it on the field?
That's a tough question. I think for me, Princeton to me is the team to beat in the Ivy League, just because I think we don't know what Cornell is without 𝐓𝐄 𝐋𝐀. I know they're going to be good, but I mean, that's a monumental loss. You're not just losing a senior, you're losing your all-time best player in program history. So look, they had a ton of fifth-year guys like we talked about before who came back and really propelled that championship run. So to me, you kind of have to see how Goldstein is with the keys to that offense. I think he's going to be great, but I know what I'm getting out of that Princeton attack with Colin Barbecue Burns, with Nate Kabiri, with Chad Palumbo. I know what I'm getting out of those guys. So I think right now in the preseason, I have to say Princeton's a team to beat in the Ivy League. I think the Ivy League is going to be interesting because to me, when I look at it, outside of Syracuse and Cornell, I don't really know how many of those other teams, like Harvard, I don't know where I feel about them. I have them at 13, but like, are they really a legit contender in the Ivy League? Like, what do we do with Yale? What do we do with Penn? What do we do with all those other teams? So I'm interested, where's Dartmouth lie? So yeah, I think I'm pretty confident in saying that Princeton and Cornell will be the top two in the Ivy League as I look at it right now, but Princeton probably will be my favorite right now.
Now I want you to set the expectation for 4 teams. Set a championship weekend expectation for 4 teams. Not necessarily your top 4, but if any of these 4 teams that you're about to name fall short of championship weekend, we're criticizing them.
Well, obviously, right off the bat, it's got to be Syracuse. So Syracuse, if they can't make championship weekend, people are going to have a lot of questions asked, especially given that they did it last year, and this was supposed to be the pivotal year. I think it would be a major disappointment if Joey and Michael Leo and that cast can't get to championship weekend this year. It'll be a big letdown, and I know the Syracuse fans would definitely let them have that. So Syracuse would be definitely probably my top there. Maryland is going to make championship weekend, so I don't even need to mention them. They already have the hotels booked to Charlottesville. They'll be there. I think North Carolina, people are going to have a lot of questions to raise if UNC is not in championship weekend. I think their fan base, I think from listening to people on Twitter, a lot of people I saw thought last year was a major success. To me, it was a great year. It was a step in the right direction. But at the end of the day, the way the year ended, they got blown out by Duke and then lost the first round at home to Richmond. That's not North Carolina standards. And the day that that's North Carolina standards, then the program's not where you want it to be or where you think it should be. So UNC's got to make championship weekend. I think if we don't see them in Charlottesville, it's going to be a major disappointment. Looking at the rest of my list, I don't know if it's a major disappointment, but like Virginia, I don't know how good they're going to be. I wouldn't say it's a disappointment, but
You can't
I think
set the expectation at championship weekend for Virginia
you
this
can't.
year.
Not setting the expectation. I just think internally, if we're talking about those guys want to get there, it's in their backyard, it's in their home. I think it would be a letdown, at least internally, from those players if they can't, if they're there watching championship weekend, a whisker away in the shadows of Klockner, watching other teams hoist up a trophy. I think that would be a gut punch to Lars Tiffany for sure. But I think, honestly, Syracuse and North Carolina are the two that jump off the page. I don't know if you can set an expectation for a bunch of the other teams. I don't know. Princeton, I feel like if they don't break through this year, that's a question mark. They broke through a couple of years back, weren't really competitive against Maryland. They've had some good teams since, but you would expect them to break through. I don't think it's fair to put expectations on Cornell yet. Georgetown, I'd say this is the pivotal year. It kind of gives me Penn State, James Franklin vibes, where it's like, we've taken this as far as we can get it. If we can't get to championship weekend this year, like, are we ever going to get to championship weekend?
Yeah.
Like for a lot of them, like, not hot seat vibes. Kevin Warren's never leaving. He's a legend. Not that way, but more just like, if I'm a Georgetown fan and alum, it's like, okay, I guess this just is our max.
We haven't been to the Final Four since 1999. We win the Big East and then we lose in the quarterfinals.
So
what about, you mentioned Penn State football. What about Penn State lacrosse? They've been in 2 of the past 3 Final Fours.
Yeah, I again, they're kind of another team. I don't know if I can definitively say it's a letdown if they don't make it. I think they're one of those programs that they float around NCAA tournament championship weekend every single year. I don't think they're at the level yet where it's expected for them to make championship weekend. I think Notre Dame kind of falls in the same rhythm. They expect to make championship weekend every year. But again, this is a whole new Notre Dame team losing their whole offense. I don't know if we can put those expectations on them right now.
Well, so I want to ask you about Notre Dame in a second, but I'm going to place that 4th championship weekend expectation team. I'm going to put it on Princeton. Collectively, me and you, we're putting it on Princeton. They're Syracuse, the team we think is going to win.
Carolina, Georgetown for me. Yeah.
Got you. Okay, so if those 4 teams, any of those 4 teams don't make championship weekend, we should be criticizing them at the end of the year.
100%.
Notre Dame is the championship window. I'm not talking about championship weekend. I'm talking about championship window closed now that they have no more Kavanaughs and are resetting their whole attack line.
No, championship window is not closed. I think Notre Dame is doing great on the recruiting trail. Obviously, who doesn't want to go to Notre Dame? Great school, great tradition, all that stuff. Like I said before, I think we don't really know what we're getting out of them, right? We don't know what they're going to look like. But to me, I think they've broken that glass ceiling and gone from like really good, can make championship weekend, to like those 2 national championships just propelling you up. I think they're a national championship team every year. They were beforehand, but now to me, it's like, I still think Coach Corrigan, what he's built in that program, I think those guys expect to be in the championship, if not make a championship every year. So I still think their championship window's open. I don't know if I don't have them yet. I have to see them in the field in that top contender, but I'm not going to take them out of that top window until they show me for a couple of years they can't get there.
Here's why I like both your 7 and 8, Notre Dame and Ohio State. They've got that defense. You can just count on that. Last year when we saw like Hopkins and Virginia bottom out like kind of unexpectedly and fall out of the top 20, they had no defense to kind of like rally around. That's why I think Ohio State and Notre Dame, even though Ohio State's bringing back a lot of interesting talent on offense, but if Notre Dame takes some time to figure things out on offense like they did last year, I think they can ride that defense. Ohio State's the same way. That's why I'm very confident that they'll stay definitely in the top 20, but I really think they're going to stay in the top 10 all year, both of those teams.
I think too, Ohio State's schedule very favorable in terms of matchup wise. Denver's coming to Columbus. Notre Dame is going to come to Columbus. Like I mentioned before, they're going to travel to Georgetown, but they're not. Hopkins is coming to Columbus. Michigan's coming to Columbus. So and Penn State's coming to Columbus. So a lot of the top games that they're going to be playing in is going to be in the Ohio State Lacrosse Stadium. They go to Maryland, they'll go to Rutgers, but those travel games, flying out to Denver, long bus ride to Penn State, Notre Dame, like those games add up for a lot of teams. So not only do I think Ohio State's going to be good, but the schedule shapes up well for them to have another great year in 2026. So.
All right, I got a fun hypothetical question for you before we wrap up. Let's just say, hypothetically, Richmond or Army got dropped into the ACC. Do you think either one of those teams could win the ACC this year?
No, I don't think either of them could win the ACC. Like you're saying, win the tournament, ACC tournament.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them could win the ACC tournament, but I do think that they could very well compete, and I wouldn't be shocked if they were, one of them was able to finish third or fourth in the ACC. I think, to me, when I
Third
look
or
at
fourth.
when I look at the ACC, to me, I think there's a clear Syracuse is clear number one to me. I think North Carolina is number two. And then I think when you look at the rest of the ACC with 3 through 5, you can shuffle that however you want. Some people might say 3 Notre Dame. Some people might say 3 Duke, vice versa. I think most people probably have UVA at the bottom right now. But look, I don't see a reason why Army plopped into the ACC and they couldn't be third, right? Beat Duke, beat a UVA, and be right in the middle of that thing.
I mean, they beat Syracuse at the Dome a couple of years ago.
They beat North Carolina
last year. Richmond beat North Carolina in the tournament last year. They went to double overtime with Duke. They almost beat Cornell a couple of times too. Like I think Richmond could do it. Army, I don't know, but I think Richmond could, if they were in the ACC, could win it this year.
I'll tell you what, both of those two teams, Richmond and Army, if you plop them in the ACC, neither of them would be scared. Neither of them would look at themselves as underdogs. They'd go toe-to-toe with them and think that they're on the same level. And I love that swagger that both those coaches have built. Those guys are not scared of anyone. They're not going to duck anyone. And yeah, could those teams, they can beat ACC teams on any day. That was proven last year in the, like you said, with Army the last couple of years. Richmond last year went to Carolina and beat them in the first round. Do I think that they can win the ACC when they play 5 ACC conference games in a row and then have an ACC tournament? I don't know. That's the question that people can ask. I'm going to say no right now, but those teams are going to, I can't doubt those teams' toughness, their mentality, and you could put them in the ACC and they can for sure compete. So anyone who thinks they can't is crazy.
All right. Last question from me, and then we'll wrap things up. Again, everyone, appreciate you all for tuning in and sticking with us for this top 20 reveal. This has been super fun. But let's talk about those small schools again, because again, this is not a big team, big school bias show. You got a couple in that 16 to 20 range, Boston U and Towson. I want to know, we know Boston University can win the Patriot League. We know Towson can win the CAA. Can they win a tournament game? Can they break through like how Richmond did this past year? Do you have faith in either of those teams, or maybe a team that's not currently ranked, to actually break through and win a tournament game?
You can't say no definitively just because it's happened in the past, but personally, no, I don't see it. Only reason I'll say that probably is because the way that the schedules have kind of breaking through in the tournament with geography and kind of how they line it up. You have teams like Towson going to play Princeton last year or vice versa. And those are tough games for teams like that to play. So unless Towson or Boston can get marquee out of conference wins like Richmond did last year, that kind of was able to boost them up to be able to play kind of virtually in an 8-9 game, right? Like, I don't know if I see either of those teams going past the first round, but look, if this is a year to do it for Towson, like I said, Mikey Weisshire hits his senior year. He could have a fairy tale year, kind of like Drenner and those guys did back, and Alex Woodall back in 2017. And I don't want to say no, it can't happen, but if I had to predict it, I don't see either of those teams winning a first round game, but can't say never's never.
Well, folks are going to have to go to Twitter or YouTube to get that answer, because I think we got booted from Instagram Live. There might be an hour. I just
noticed that.
Yeah, there might be an hour long.
Is it an hour limit?
I guess so. We learned something new. When you talk to Ogie, you ask him to rank 20 teams. You can't keep that under an hour, but that's okay, because the full thing is going to be available on Twitter, X, and YouTube. So hopefully everyone tunes in there and watches the full thing. But appreciate you hopping on. Hoagie, don't hang up yet, but we're ending the live video now. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks, guys.